Hello there everyone and welcome to a new review on the channel. And today we will be looking at an older book that came out, but one that never got, kind of the spotlight it deserves, and that is Calculated Thoughts by Doug Dyment. Now this is a treasure trove of material if you're looking, I'll say, into specific areas of mentalism, because it's not all encompassing in my opinion, but it does have such good material in certain specific areas that I'm going to tell you about right after the intro. Perfect, so decide to stick around, which means you want to learn more about Doug Dyment's Calculated Thoughts. So what is this book? This is a book focused on mentalism. It's focused on a lot of aspects of mentalism, from star signs to ESP to magic squares to cards to name reveals, etc. It has a lot of things here, but some of the topics are more accentuated than others, and that's what I want to tell you about right now. Now, I won't do a performance of any of the effects for you. I will talk about one of my favorite effects in a second, but I would much rather tell you exactly the main points and the main sections that you're going to be getting here. So in my opinion, there's four or three, I would say, major sections in this book. The first major section that you're going to encounter is magic squares. So if you're a fan of the magic square plot, and you don't like having, something set up or pre-learned, or having, different things, having a special card that when you write, the numbers, so you copy the numbers on a pad. If you want your magic square to feel more genuine, more off the cuff, and feel even more random than any others, because we all know the issue with the magic square, that if someone chooses a number like 88, all the numbers on the square is like 11, 20, 30, 8, and then you have 87, 86, 85, 84, and people are like, okay. So if you want to fix those issues, if you really want to push your magic squares to the max that they could be with some effort and some mental gymnastics, there's a huge section here for you. Second, there's a huge section regarding stacks, regarding card stacks. So whether you want to kind of improve on your stack work or learn some stacks that don't require as much memory work as others. For example, Doug Dyment's stack is kind of a variation of Cy Stebbins, but it's a memorized Cy Stebbins with different principles than the Cy Stebbins. It's something more attuned with the particle system by Joshua J, rather than a more purebred stack like the Mnemonica, Aronson, Juan Tamar, Woody Aragon stack, Danny Darty stack, etc. It's a much more easy to learn mathematical based one that has all of the principles and uses of those big stacks, but in a much simpler way to learn. So if you're interested in kind of stack work and stuff like that, this book has a ton of material on it for you. And the last, in my opinion, huge section in this book is regarding ESP cards. In my opinion, it's the best section because it's the first time in all my years of Magic and all my reading of Magic that you learn that ESP cards are more than just a matching routine. He teaches you how to do impactful readings with ESP cards. He teaches you the meaning of ESP cards. He teaches you the symbolism. He teaches you how you could literally not even do an effect and just do a tarot reading using ESP cards. He tells you how to use them as a tool for divination. He really shapes, in the world of Magic and Mentalism, ESP cards as something more than just a 5-card match, which everyone is aware of, or just a simple prediction. He really teaches you how to hone in on what these symbols means, on what they are, and really push the envelope forward. And that is essentially my favorite section. There's a brilliant effect in it where you will be able to, so there's a prediction, a specter deals an amount of cards, they stop whenever they want, and at any point that they stop, they will always stop on the card that you predicted. It's a brilliant, simple effect and principle that works so well, and I think it's just fantastic. And just that principle and what you learn about ESP, for me, is worth the price of the ebook by itself. So I've been giving you the main categories. I also want to mention some other things that you're going to learn. You're going to learn about star signs and anagrams. You're also going to learn about name reveals. You're going to learn about folds. So you're going to learn things like 4-card folds, peak folds, and all of that material that we all know. You're going to learn some card routines. You're going to learn some routines using billets. You're going to learn a lot of other material, mentalism based, but that's why I wanted to spend time on those 3 sections, because in my opinion, those are basically, if you put all of those together, the big crux and kind of the backbone of the book. So now that you know what Calculated Thoughts by Doug Dyment is, let's talk about where you buy this, how much does it cost, and what do you get. So you can buy this directly and exclusively from Vanishing Ink. I think this is a book that did not end up being a push towards other retailers. You can buy it in either 2 ways. You can either buy the ebook version, which is what I did for 45 USD, or you can buy the physical edition for 60 USD. In addition to that, what you get is the book. So whether you get the physical one, you're going to get a physical book. If you get an ebook, well, you're going to get an ebook. And the book is around 300 and something pages, and you get all of the material that I mentioned inside, as well as long as some essays and some thinking on the plots. So now that we've covered all of that, let's get into difficulty. So how difficult are these effects to perform? Now, as I said, with a book of this magnitude where things are so spread out, it's hard to really determine a difficulty level. But overall, I wouldn't say any of these routines are easy. Most of the routines will require you to memorize stuff. Most of the routines will require you to learn pattern. Most of them will require you to learn a certain stack. Some of them will require you to learn some specific moves when folding billets. Some of them will require you to know a sequence of cards or sequence of things to remember when doing an effect. So overall, none of these effects are really self-working miracles. They're all things that you'll have to work on, things that you'll have to put a bit of time in, and things that you'll have to commit to memory one way or another if you want to perform those effects. But that's not to say that everything here is memorized and you'll spend hours and hours memorizing things from this book. That's not true. There's things that don't require memory work, but they will still require some practice. So overall, this is not a book for beginners, not at all, by any stretch of the means, nor is it a book for, the most advanced mentalists out there. It's something I think intermediate. So if you're interested in the world of mentalism and you've been in it for quite some time, I think that this book really sets the line in intermediate. Now let's talk about practicality. So again, when there's a big stretch of, effects such as these, it's hard to really say the angles and everything for all of them. But overall, almost all of the routines are angle proof. Almost all of the routines are examinable. Not many of the routines will require a table. Some of them will, some of them won't. It's pretty much 50-50. In terms of carrying capacity, it's very packed small. Some of them you just need a paper. Some of them you just need a billet. Some of them you need a deck of cards and deck of ESP cards. So you don't have to carry any big stuff here when you're performing this material. And most of them is resettable instantly. Where would you perform this material? This material is material that is very also, as I've been saying, is very spread out. So there's material that is going to work perfectly for stage parlor cabaret. There's material that's going to work perfectly for table hopping. There's material that's going to work perfectly for one-on-one scenarios, really casual, intimate settings. There's material that is going to work for everything. That's not to say that all of the effects will work for all of the settings, but there will be material for all of your performance venues if you're interested in it. So having said all of this, what are the positives and negatives of Doug Dyment's Calculated Thoughts? First, let's start out with the negatives. One of the negatives is I feel that in those big 3 sections that I've mentioned, it can get a bit heavy. And what I mean by that is that he teaches you a lot of variations and ultimately teaches you, this is my favorite one. I feel that the way it was designed, it should have been his favorite variation first and then teach you alternatives that came before and so on. Because sometimes you get so confused with how many variations and how many different things he is teaching you that you lose kind of the track of, which one did I like? I'm kind of getting confused. And it's also to the point that you realize that, if you really like the first routine, maybe his favorite one, you won't even put the time and effort into learning, but it would be beneficial because it's much better. But since you learned the first one, that's the easiest usually. I feel that just in kind of the shaping of the sections, it should have been a bit more, a bit more cohesive or start differently rather than putting so much into these. Like the perfect example is the magic squares. There's like, I think, 8 variations of the magic square that get progressively and progressively more fooling, but also progressively harder to do. And I also feel that, do we really need that many variations? I get he likes it, but still, I just felt that these 3 sections felt kind of a bit overloaded with content, and I feel that the content wasn't explained in a very intuitive manner. But that's my only negative that I can have with this book. In terms of positive, there's a ton of routines. There's fooling routines. There are routines for every type of performer, whether you perform parlor, stage, cabaret. The ESP section is, I think, the best kind of amalgamation of ESP effects and ESP theory that I've ever come across in all my readings and videos and discovery of mentalism and ESP cards. I think it is probably the best. The routines are fun to do, they're fooling. You could maybe even possibly learn a new stack that will allow you to do a lot of different effects, and a stack that is easy to learn, and you'll 100% at least learn some theory as well from this book and some thinking about how to progress with certain routines or how to make them more fooling. So overall, would I recommend Doug Dyment's Calculated Thoughts, and what do I rate it out of 10? I would heavily recommend this, especially if you like stacked work, if you like magic squares and ESP cards. If you like any of those 3, you're going to get your money's worth. Because as I said, you need, in my opinion, to at least like one of those 3 to appreciate the content and the breadth and the depth of the book. Whereas if you don't like any of those, you're probably going to be skipping over almost 2/3 of the book because you're not interested in those, and the effect that are not using those principles are rather minimal and spread throughout the book. So if you like any of those areas, I heavily recommend the book, and I'm going to give Doug Dyment's Calculated Thoughts an 8.75 on 10. I think it's a very good book, specifically for the ESP symbols, but I do have, some gripes with it in certain sections because I'm not a big fan of the magic square. I've never liked the magic square. It's a very long, it's almost 90 pages, I believe, all of the effects on the magic square. So some of these get long, but overall, it's still a fantastic, fantastic book. And I think that you can get a lot of mileage and worth for your money. So if you have any additional questions about Calculated Thoughts, leave them down below. If not, I'll see you all in my next review. Have a good one, and bye-bye.